Welcome to this module on how to create and conduct an online survey in Qualtrics. So the first step is to go to baruch.qualtrics.com and log in with your Baruch credentials. So you sign in here. Once you're logged in, you'll start with this page and you'll click on Create Project on the top right corner. And here you can give your project a name. Let's call it My Survey, and put it in a folder if you like, and click on Create the Project. So when the screen opens with your survey, your first question will automatically be set up for you, and this is called Q1, shown on the top left of the question. By default, the opening question is set up as a multiple choice question, but of course you don't need to keep it that way, but let's stay with it for now. So I want to direct your attention to the top right corner of the screen, where it says multiple choice. So this is the part where you change the question type. You can change the question type if you want. And there are many question types, and we'll look at that as we go forward. But for the moment, let's say we want to keep it a multiple choice question. We just want to change the number of options. So right now it shows that we have 3 options. So I can change that to 4 choices. And now when you've got the 4 choices set up, just click on each to write in the text that you want. So I'll call it choice 1, click on the next, choice 2, choice 3, and choice 4. All right. Now notice that you have a little arrow in a blue box on the right of the option. And if you click on that, you'll see more options for you to specify in the choice, in the response. So for example, if I had something which I wanted to call an other response, meaning their response doesn't fit into the first 3 categories, and so you have some sort of all other response, you go to the top and you click on Allow Text Entry, and a little field is created which you can adjust, the width of which you can adjust to suit your needs. So that's how you would set up an all other type of response where they can enter whatever they want. So that's your question 1. Let's see how to create the next question, and that is by going to create a new question. The minute you do that, another question will be set up as a multiple choice, but you can now change that. And now if you go to the top right and you click on the down arrow over here, you can see many question types are possible. So for example, if you click on the down arrow, you'll see that you can enter just descriptive text without actually having a question. And this is very useful if you want to give some instructions at some point, or if you want to give a statement and have people respond to the statement in the subsequent questions. You can also use this at the start of the questionnaire to set up the introduction to the questionnaire. So I'm going to do that for now. I'm going to just create the introduction to the questionnaire, and this is the introduction to the questionnaire. And now I can actually move this up by clicking on these arrows that appear to the left of the question, up and down arrows. So I clicked on the up arrow to move it to the top, and now that's my beginning to the questionnaire. Don't worry about the question numbers. This is still Q2 and the other one is Q1, but don't worry about that. That won't show up in the final questionnaire. So keep in mind that you have lots of ways to write this question. So all your options are on the right hand side, and let's look at some of them. We already talked about how to change the number of choices. So you can also specify that they can choose more than one response. Right now we've set it up to only allow one response, but if you want people to be able to answer more than one, then you choose multiple answer, and this was basically the same type of question as check all that apply. You can position your choices vertically as we've done now, or horizontally. Vertically is usually more efficient in terms of space. You can specify a validation, meaning that they have to respond to the question. They will not be able to proceed until they fill out this question. So for the most part, we're not going to specify that. And if you have a specific type of answer that you're looking for example, you want them to enter a number or a date or something like that, then you can specify a validation type. You can then add a page break so that they see the next question after they complete this one. They don't see it on the same page. Adding a page break is useful when you want them to skip questions based on their responses. So a page break will allow you to set up that skip pattern. You can also add display logic, meaning that the question will be displayed only if some conditions are met, meaning if they chose a previous response in a previous question, chose some particular response in a previous question. And you can also add, alternatively, skip logic, meaning that if you have more questions that follow, then they can go to a different question later on based on their response in this one. So there's lots of different types of questions. And of course, you can move the questions, you can copy them to set up a new question, and so on. Let's look at some options here. For the question, there's some advanced options as well, which you access through the gear icon. And again, many of these are similar. Add display logic is something we just talked about. Adding skip logic as well can be done from here. You can carry forward choices, and this is very useful when, suppose in a later question you want to refer to a choice they made in a previous one. You don't actually have to refer to it in the abstract. That particular choice can actually be piped in, and that's what it's called. It can be piped into the next question, and we'll see how that can be done as well. And also another useful option is randomization. Sometimes you want to avoid order biases due to the order of the responses, and then you can specify that these choices will be randomly presented to respondents. So now let's create a new question, and here I'm going to change the question type to something other than multiple choice. Let's see what our other options are. So we have some things called standard questions, and if you hover on any of them, you'll see on the left side, or rather in the center of the screen, you'll see an example of what that descriptive text or what that question type might look like. So you can see it says the following questions will give you an opportunity to tell us more about your experience, etc. So this is just to give you a flavor for what that question type will lead to. Multiple choice, you already are familiar with. A matrix table is something that's very useful. If you're rating options on a scale, then a matrix table would be very useful for you. You also have something that's an open-ended question called a text entry, and you have rank order questions where you ask people to rank things and based on criteria, well, importance or preference or some criteria like that. Then you also have some what they call specialty questions, and the only one that I think might be useful for us is the constant sum scale. So an example of that is shown in the center pop-up box, which is what percentage of your discretionary money do you spend on the following items? The total must sum to 100. This is just an example, and when we actually write a constant sum question, your instructions must be a lot more detailed than this, but this just gives you an idea of what you can do. All right, so these are various question types. I'm going to start with a matrix table and show you how that's set up. So I choose the matrix table, and the matrix table basically, if you look here, creates a set of statements with scale points. And you're familiar with this type of question. It's called a Likert scale. So I'm going to change the number of statements. Again, on the top right, I can specify various options for this question. I can change it to 4 or 5 statements, let's say, and I can change the number of scale points. So I'm going to change it to 5 scale points. So you notice as you do that, everything changes. So I'm going to say this is statement 1, and so on. I have to specify the labels on each of these scale points. So I'm going to say strongly disagree, and I'm going to say on this end strongly agree. Okay, and you notice Qualtrics tries to insert its own opinion about what you should have in there. They've inserted extra scale points, and I'm going to change that back to 5 scale points. And again, this is not quite right. The scale points here should be agree, and this is neither agree nor disagree. All right. So this is how we'd set up a Likert scale. Similarly, you can use this matrix table to set up all kinds of questions. You don't need to have multiple statements. You could just have one question and an agree-disagree scale or some other type of scale. You could use this format to rate importance of an attribute and have the questions, the scale points ranging from not at all important to extremely important, and so on. So this is another example. You can also, or you should also write in the question text, please indicate your agreement or disagreement with each of the following statements, etc. So now that's our question is set up. Just for fun, let's add one more question, and we'll make this, let's say, what should we make it? Let's make it a rank order question. Here we're going to ask people to rank order different items. So let's say we have 3 brands. Please rank these 3 brands in order of preference, with the most preferred brand on top. And so I'm going to put something like Coke, Pepsi, and 7-Up. So that's all there is to it. And what respondents will do is basically, well, you can specify different options, but the default option is drag and drop. So they'll basically drag and drop whichever brand they like most, put that on top, followed by the next most preferred brand, and so on. You can also have other ways to do this, but this is probably the easiest and the most fun for respondents to do as well.